It'll
Okay.
have a red button. It says recording. Well, good afternoon, everyone. Hope you all can hear us. We want to welcome all of you for joining us. We have friends and family and donors and supporters from all across the U.S., so we're very excited about that. I want to thank you and thank the board for the Friends of the Library, and I want to introduce them to you. We have co-vice presidents with Laura Finch and Marcia Spenceley. Our treasurer is Dee Plana, who has been the one sending you all your messages. Our secretary is Debbie Peterson. We have members at large, Judy Schofield, Margarita Riley, Luann Webster, and we have our wonderful librarian who also set all this up for us, and that is Janet Phillips. And we're very thankful to her as we get ready to start this talk. The talk today is going to be a natural and cultural history of Soda Dam, and you all see it in the background here that my husband Tom Swetnam will be presenting. Tom is a Regents Professor Emeritus from the University of Arizona, and we have settled here in Hemis Springs and have been here now, hard to believe, 6 years. I wanted to just do a little housekeeping on this. If you have any questions about the talk, please feel free to put it into the chat box. I will be monitoring the chat box and I will write down the questions and give them to Tom. And you can find that either at the bottom, usually it's at the bottom of your screen and it says chat. You will just open it up and you can send, if you don't want to send the question to everyone, you can put my name in there under search, Suzanne Swetnam, and I will give Tom those questions. Hopefully we won't have any technical issues. If we do and we totally lose out, we will try to recontact you through your email, but hopefully we'll get through all of this without any issues and have a great time enjoying this talk that Tom has prepared for you. Thank you.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for coming. It's my honor, pleasure to be able to talk about one of my favorite places in the world and to share with you some history and perspective about this amazing landmark that exists here in the valley that many of us live. It's quite a varied story. I have a lot to say about it. I'm going to try to fit it into a 50-minute talk. We'll see if I can do that. I have lots of little side stories to tell, and hopefully I won't get too distracted on telling you those. Let me get started here with the PowerPoint. I'll share that with you, so hopefully you can see the PowerPoint, and I'm starting it now. All right, so there's the opening slide, and here you see Soda Dam, and it's a really rather remarkable photograph. Notice the little spot of light there on the water beneath the waterfall. There's a certain time of the year when the sun rises in the east and shines through a little window in the backside of Soda Dam and illuminates that pool. And I said I wasn't going to tell too many side stories, but here's a quick one. And one of the reasons why I love Soda Dam is that I grew up here in Hemis Springs in the 1960s with my siblings and my family, and I learned how to swim in Soda Dam. It's a wonderful swimming hole. Occasionally you see people swimming in it today, but back in the summertime, we swam in it almost every day. And in fact, we used to swim in Soda Dam as early as April or May when the water was freezing cold. And the reason we could do that, here's a little secret of Soda Dam if you don't know it. Over in the left-hand corner there by the waterfall, in the far left-hand corner to the left of the waterfall, there's a hot spring. So you can jump in Soda Dam when it's freezing cold in the pool there and swim like mad to get over to that corner, and you can stay nice and warm in that little hot spring. And then other things you can do is climb behind the waterfall. There's actually a little ledge back there behind the waterfall, and then you can jump through. Well, Soda Dam is indeed an amazing thing. It's an amazing feature, and it's, in a way, it's kind of a roadside attraction. We just drove down past Soda Dam. Of course, it's a weekend, and there must have been a dozen cars there. You see it every weekend if you live up here or travel through. People swarming around and on Soda Dam. People love Soda Dam. They're fascinated by it. It's a curious feature. There's hot springs there. Most people don't really know, though, that much about it. They don't. I guess they get it that it's a hot spring, and there's this travertine, this rock that's coming out of the spring waters, and there's these caves. There's that grotto that you can see in the background there. By the way, this is one of my favorite photographs. There's many photographs of Soda Dam, hundreds and hundreds of photographs of Soda Dam, and with tourists especially. So here's an early tourist photo. This is actually one of the first photographs, earliest photographs I've found, and I think it could be as early as the late 1870s. In this picture, you see, I think there's something like 6 adults, 2 children, 2 dogs, and 2 horses. And of course, you see, the grotto. This is the grotto here, and the cascade travertine formation that's over the river. These are what I call the domes, and then the big old structure of Soda Dam itself right here. I'm going to be coming back to this picture again later. Again, Soda Dam, it's kind of a roadside attraction, and believe it or not, Soda Dam is in Believe It or Not, and it's just I include this just as one of those things that it is a curious feature. It's actually a globally significant feature in the sense that there are fissure-ridge travertine formations like this, fissure-ridge travertine formations like this elsewhere around the world. They're kind of rare, but as far as I know, there are none that are situated in a box canyon, a narrow canyon that actually formed a dam over a river. That is truly unique. And besides that geological and geographic uniqueness, there's many other features: cultural history, geological history, flood history that come along with Soda Dam that make it truly a remarkable feature. Well, as I said, there's lots of photographs of Soda Dam. Here's just one from the 1930s in the Palace of the Governors. And I've spent many years looking for old photographs of Soda Dam, and I've looked at hundreds, if not thousands of them. And there are, as I said, many, but most of them, almost all of them, are from this view from the south side looking to the north. It's the most, scenic perspective of Soda Dam, where you see the river coming through the waterfall on the right side. And here you see the old road. So there's the old dirt road winding its way up. This is in the 1930s. And the photographs themselves are extremely interesting and informative about the cultural history over the last 150 years. We see people, visiting. We see things. There's a structure. I don't know how many of you knew there was at one time a little structure right there in front of Soda Dam. And if we focus on other parts of the dam, we see interesting things like there's a big dark mass right here. That's actually a pile of debris, woody debris that's accumulated on that east side of Soda Dam from floods. So flood history is a big part of Soda Dam. Flooding has left its imprint on the dam, and there's a record of flooding embedded within the dam itself that tells us a lot about the history of floods in our valley, big floods and small floods. Again, the photographs are interesting. You see all sorts of things, people parking cars and wood. We see lots of logs in the dam itself. And that's a big part of the story that I'm going to talk about over the next few minutes, is the history that we get from the photographs and from the materials that are in Soda Dam itself. Repeat photography is a really powerful tool where you can take old photos and then you take new photos from the almost exact same point, and then you can see the changes that have occurred. And there are a number of changes that are visible over time in the dam. A couple of them that I'll talk about in some detail is the changes in the domes, the cascade formation of travertine over the river. We can actually see the growth and formation of the domes over time as the spring waters build the travertine over the river. And then we also see the road. So here's barely in this old photo, you can see the old road just starting to top over the top. There are very few photographs of the old road going over, but I've got some, which I'll show you in a few minutes. And then here's the sad, in many ways, the gap created by the blasting of the road through Soda Dam in 1960 or 1961. That is a bit of hubris, I think, that was done without thoughtfulness, and it's caused a real big change in the dam, in Soda Dam, and its structure and future history, I think. Well, okay, so let's step back and go through some of the history and some of the geological history of Soda Dam. It's really a remarkable geological story pieced together by people like Fraser Goff, who's a retired geologist at Los Alamos National Labs, and Jamie Gardner, who some of you may know or knew, was a longtime resident here in Hemis Springs and passed away, unfortunately. But they and others have put together an amazing geological story and history of Soda Dam and how it formed and why it formed. And I'm going to share with you just a few of those details. There's a couple of papers here, the titles of a couple of the geological papers that describe the history of Soda Dam. So first of all, one thing to keep in mind, of course, is that, and you know well, is that we live in a very volcanic mountain range. The Hemis Mountains is a caldera, it's an ancient exploded volcano, and then collapsed into a crater. And that caldera, the Hemis Mountains, the Valles caldera, is situated along this major fault line, what's known as the Hemis Lineament. Hemis Lineament. So in this upper diagram map, you can see this long line, and it actually is showing some of the other volcanic zones across the northern part of New Mexico and over into Arizona. And there are various, volcanic plugs and craters. There's Capulin state or national monument that's up here in the corner of New Mexico, if you've ever visited there. This is all along that same major fault where magma has come up through the Earth's crust and created these volcanic features. Well, fault zones are a critical part of the story of Soda Dam, because that major fault zone, which comes down right across the Valles caldera, comes right down San Diego Canyon. In fact, San Diego Canyon probably is formed in part because of that fault. And where the fault crosses San Diego Canyon is right at Soda Dam. So the major fault or a major part of the fault of that lineament crosses right at Soda Dam. And that's where the hot waters coming out of the caldera and down San Diego Canyon hit that fault and bubble up. So here's another one of the most amazing thing and cool things about Soda Dam is that everybody sees Soda Dam as you're driving up the road. And what they don't always recognize is that there's other Soda Dams. There's other much larger Soda Dams. There's actually at least 3 major Soda Dams, older Soda Dams, above the current Soda Dam. So you have the big one here, this big mass. This is a map of the huge Soda Dam that exists up above Soda Dam on the west side of the road. That Hemis Cave is underneath this formation. And so this giant deposit here is the first original Soda Dam, and it is about 100 times bigger in volume than the current Soda Dam. And then across the road, there's 2 other dams. There's this one here that's just a little bit to the north on the west side of the river, and that one is 50 to 90,000 years old. And there's another little piece that is about 100,000 years old. So there's actually 3 Soda Dams, or 4 actually. So if you look at them here, examples, this is a view there at the upper left is going across the old bridge, which is being torn down as we speak. And up there, if you look straight ahead and up, you see this huge formation. This is an old Soda Dam. It's an old travertine formation that formed somewhere between 1 million and 500,000 years ago. So it's an enormous chunk of travertine, and there used to be massive spring flows, huge amounts of spring flows to create that upper Soda Dam. I think what you're seeing here, this face, this kind of vertical face here, what you're seeing actually is the central fissure of that Soda Dam, and all of the travertine has broken down and fallen off of the central fissure, and what's left is the layered record that's on the north side of that fissure. You'll understand a little better what I'm talking about with the fissure as we go along here. But here's the other one. As you stand, let's say on that little parking lot just to the north of Soda Dam, you'll see this chunk of travertine, and that's the one that's 58 to 98,000 years. And then right across from Soda Dam, there's the one that's 107. Now, how do we know how old these are? Well, the geologists have used what they call radiometric dating. It's like carbon-14 dating, but instead of using carbon isotopes, they use uranium and thorium isotopes. So the ratio of these 2 isotopes tells how long it's been since these rocks were formed. So with the isotopic dating, that's how we know that there are these ancient dams that have formed in the San Diego Canyon. Now here's the coolest part of the theory about why there are different dams of different ages. Fraser Goff and his colleagues, they theorized that the major dam formations in San Diego Canyon correlate with periods of lake stands in the Valles Caldera. So at the time when the caldera was intact and there was not a canyon cutting through that south side of the caldera, San Diego Canyon, before that it was an intact caldera, and there were lakes, very large lakes inside the caldera. And so the general idea is that the lakes at different times, there have been lakes in the caldera, and when the lakes formed, they produced a lot of water flowing down through the faults into the hydrological layers coming down into the canyon. So the time periods when the major dams were formed correlate pretty well with the formation of the major soda dams. So 500,000 to 1,000,000 years ago, there was a major lake in Soda Dam. And by the way, the geologists also understand or believe, and they found evidence for major floods where the lakes finally broke through the south end and rushed down San Diego Canyon. So San Diego Canyon, where we live here in Hemis Springs, is probably formed by multiple catastrophic floods. Think about it. You know, probably hundreds of feet tall waves of water coming down the canyon here at times in the past, and creating the canyon itself and digging the canyon downward. So the water flow, again, this is a cross section of the Valles Caldera from the southwest on the left to the northeast on the right. And so the rim of the caldera would be right about here. And then as you go toward the north, you're coming into a Redondo. So this would be Redondo Peak, and the valles are down over in here. So once you're inside the caldera, you're really close to the magma. You're really close to the lava. And so all that heat that's coming up from great depth in the crust is actually driving the water upward out of the crust itself. And then you also have what's called meteoric water. That's rainfall and snow coming into the valleys. So there's lots of water coming into this pot that's being heated, and that water gets pushed up and it flows downhill. So effectively what you have is a big tank of water up there in the Valles Caldera that's 8,000 feet elevation to 7,000 feet, and down here at 6,000 feet, 1,000 feet lower, you have a lot of hydrological head, or a lot of pressure of that water coming down through the layers. And that hot water is coming down through limestone, which is really important part of the whole story, because the hot water is actually dissolving the calcium carbonates out of the limestone, and that is what's being deposited as travertine. Well, one of the mysteries of this whole theory is that we have these older dams that are 50, 100,000, 500,000 to 1,000,000 years old. But then there's Soda Dam itself, the current existing Soda Dam. Get this, it's only about 4,000 or 5,000 years old. So the current dam is actually a small one, and it's very young. It's only 4,000 or 5,000 years old. That's pretty amazing. And it doesn't fit with the lake stand theory, because there's been no lakes in the last 4,000 or 5,000 years. So the current Soda Dam, we're not exactly sure why it formed. It may just be that it was a wetter period and there was more hydrological flow. It may be that there's been lots of small dams like Soda Dam, and now we're looking at one of them. Well, here we are back to this old photo. And I like to use this photo because it shows lots of things, and I've labeled lots of features on it here. A couple of things to note is that as you look at Soda Dam, notice that this older part of the dam, the 4,000 or 5,000 year old structure, it's flat all the way across, and then suddenly there's a break. This is what I call a shear zone. This is a shear zone. The old dam used to come further across. What happened? There was a big flood that broke out a huge chunk of travertine right here. And since that time, the hot waters have been coming out of the end of Soda Dam and creating what they call cascade formation travertine. So this is not like a central fissure-ridge formation here. This is cascade formation of the hot waters leaking out of the broken end on that east side over Soda Dam. And then notice the grotto. This is a little cave. And this is kind of an amazing thing, this little grotto. It probably has some very deep cultural history. Undoubtedly it does, actually. The Hemis people, it's a very important place for the Hemis people. A lot of the old photographs show logs and stuff. They're kind of actually trying to keep people out of there, I think. There's other features here, which we'll talk about in a moment. Look at the dome over the river. Look how much smaller it is. You can see a perceptible change in the growth of the dome as you look at these old photos. Here's a little drone video flying towards Soda Dam. There's Suzanne with our little doggies. And the drone is so great because you can kind of see these perspectives that you wouldn't otherwise see. And again, you can see the big high old dam, the cascade formations, the grotto, the waterfall, the amazing waterfall, the fact that the dome itself comes over the top of the river, right? How in the world did that ever form where you get the travertine forming up over the top? Now I'm going to speed up here and go over so you can see, actually, when we did this drone flight a couple of years ago, and today there's actually some spring flows over the top of the dome. So here you have water coming out over the dome. It's coming out of the central fissure of Soda Dam, and this is how travertine forms. Is the basic idea is it's hot water, it's loaded with minerals, it's dissolved all these calcium carbonates out of the limestone. So there's a big limestone deposit we have here in the Hemis Valley that runs from about the old mission church up to Battleship. That's called the Madeira limestone. And all this hot water is going through that Madeira limestone, and it's dissolving calcium carbonates out of the limestone. So then the hot water comes out at the hot springs, and it outgasses carbon dioxide. It's letting out carbon dioxide. And when it does that, it allows the calcium carbonates to what they call precipitate, it to fall out of the water, to basically evaporate. The water evaporates, and all the calcium carbonate is laid down in a layer. And that's the travertine of these calcium carbonates. Basically, it's the limestone being redeposited from the hot spring waters. Now, as the drone flies over here, I'm going to speed it up a little bit so you can see some of the features I want to show you. So there, this view right here is, you can see the central fissure. There's the central fissure of Soda Dam, and the water is actually flowing out of that central fissure and coming down here over the domes. And then okay, there's Suzanne down there with the dogs again. Let me zoom forward. Oh, by the way, this is kind of interesting. As you look across the road, there's the road cut, there's the cattle guard. Now, the road cut interferes with the flow of the spring, and so where's all the travertine going? Well, the travertine that would have formed across the dam over the last 60 years, a lot of it is right here. It's come through the culvert and has accumulated a big pile of travertine right there. And then periodically, the Department of Transportation digs out all the travertine over there on the west side. So we're losing all that travertine that would have, at one time, probably come over the domes. So as we proceed down the top of Soda Dam, I'm sure many of you have hiked up there and climbed up on top. Thousands and thousands of people have climbed on top of Soda Dam, which is actually maybe a little bit of a problem, because the central fissure has become plugged with debris. And in fact, people have taken horses up there. There's old photographs of horses up on Soda Dam. But notice what I want to show you here are these little cones. See that little cone right there? And there's another cone right here. Those are little geysers. Those were little springs flowing out. There's another one right there. And if you look at those, you can actually see little holes in the top of them where the water was flowing out of those little geysers at one time in the past. And then there's the road cut. So next time you go through the road cut, you'll see this wall. There's this vertical wall. That is the central fissure that was cut through, and actually was a main feature driving the formation of Soda Dam. Oops, let me go on here to the next slide. So here is a diagram. There's been a lot of research in the last 10 years or so on travertine formations, fissure-ridge travertine formations in general. As I said, they're kind of rare, but there's quite a few of them apparently in Turkey. And there's a group of geologists who've written some really interesting papers on the formation of fissure-ridge travertines. And they basically follow this pattern as where you have a central fissure and the hot water is coming up out of that fissure. And along that central fissure, you get what are called banded travertines, where there's lots of crystals, really pretty crystals along these vertical faces. And then the water is flowing up and over and down on both sides. And there you get the bedded travertine, this kind of curved embedded travertine on two sides of the central fissure. And the central fissure, mind you, it's lined up with the fault. So this is a crack in the earth where the water is coming up through that crack, and then it's forming the travertine on two sides of that crack. And over time, there's the dynamics change, and the structure of these central fissure-ridge travertines change depending on the water level, right? So how much water is flowing and how high up the water is. So it's kind of a artesian or well kind of a phenomenon where there's actually pressure, overpressure of water pushing upward. And the travertine itself is typically flowing out of the ends of the crack or the fissure, and the fissure is opening or closing depending on what's happening geologically. It might be expanding or it might be closing, and that changes the flow of the water as well. But at times, the two ends get plugged up. The travertine fills up the ends, and then you can actually get flow coming out of the very top. And that's when you get those little cones forming where water is flowing over the top. Historically, it's possible that there was water flow over the top of Soda Dam as late as the 1870s. I'll show you an early description of Soda Dam, and there are suggestions in that description that there may have been springs flowing across the top of Soda Dam. Well, okay, that's a bit of the geological history. Now we'll talk a bit about some of the flood history. And the photographs are really great in telling some of this history of the floods. Here's a photo from 1880s. And again, you can see some of the logs that are, there's actually an older log that's in the back there, and people standing up on top of Soda Dam. And then here's a little bit more recent. This is 1884, and you can see some logs in there. And then there's this one that I think is right about 1890. Look at the, by the way, look at the horse up here up on top. But look at the quantity of wood right there. So this is a big flood that happened about 1890 or so. I haven't got a good date on this yet, but that was a massive flood where the water came down and it plugged up probably right there. And then all of the debris from knocked down trees got caught right there in Soda Dam. And what happens then is that some of these trees get stuck in Soda Dam. They get embedded in the travertine because the travertine is growing. There's the hot spring flowing over the dome there, and it's growing. And over time, some of these chunks of wood get trapped. And the most famous one for me is this photograph of this log. They got stuck in Soda Dam from about 1890 to 1941. So all the photographs that you can find of Soda Dam show this log stuck in front of the waterfall for some 50 odd years. And it's actually just kind of hovering there above the water. And it literally is stuck in the travertine right there. That log was there. And there are other logs. So there, as you look back in time in the old photos, you can see older logs. This is what I call log A, but look up here. See this right here is what's called log C. If you folks can see it, there's actually another log that's kind of separated away from the dome. And then a few years later, this is an Edward Curtis photograph, sometime between 1903 and 1910. That log is starting to get covered. And then already by 1910, it's even more covered. So that log is actually a very key one in understanding the rate of growth of Soda Dam and how the domes have increased in size over time. So here's the 1941 flood. This is an amazing picture. This is from the Adams family collection of the Adams family. Many of you know Amy Adams Green and Paul Adams, and that family lived in the valley for many decades. This photograph from 1941 shows this huge flood, and notice the water's coming over the top here and around, and also notice there's a little bit of water coming over here on the left, right? So just below the grotto, there's actually water coming down right there. What does that tell you? Well, it tells you that the water was so high that it's coming over the west end of Soda Dam where the road is, okay? So there's literally is a lake behind Soda Dam during this 1941 flood. So the waters had raised up and actually are coming over the road on the left side, on the west side, and they're coming over here around on the east side. And by the way, there's the stuck log. You can just barely see it. It's right there. It's still there when this photograph was taken. And there's another log in back behind here, which shows up later after the 1941 flood. And after the 1941 flood, I don't find any photographs of the stuck log. It's gone. So here's a postcard, I believe from the 1940s, sometime in the 1940s, and the stuck log is gone. So it was washed out. in the 1941 flood. And that big flood had a big impact in the valley here. It took out bridges, took out some homes, changed the course of the Hemis River. Here's a picture of the old bridge across the Hemis River. So this is right now we're underway. We're building the third bridge, right? So the new bridge is the third bridge, and the second bridge, which was built at the same time they blasted the road through Soda Dam in 1960 or 61. And then this is the older bridge, which was built, I'm not sure when, probably in the 20s or 30s. But this bridge was washed out in the 1941 flood. And Gilbert Sandoval told me a story that the 1941 flood took this bridge and carried it down, and it hit their bridge, the Sandoval Bridge, down there below the ranger station, and it hit their bridge, and it didn't knock their bridge out. Instead, this bridge broke apart and went underneath the Sandoval Bridge, amazingly enough. So histories of flooding in the Hemis is something that we might want to think about in the future. If we have floods like that again, it might be trouble. Well, back to the story of logs in Soda Dam. There's this log C, and there's a picture, I found a close-up picture of this from 1903, and you can see it's actually sticking up in the air here, and it's not attached to the dome. You can see the end of it. And then only a few years later, this photograph by Charles Lummis shows it attached to Soda Dam. There it is right there. It's the same log. Here's a close-up view of that. Here's that log. Here's some guys sitting up here. And here's that log that's now embedded in Soda Dam. So I know that this log was put in place probably about 1890, and it took a while for it to get covered. Well, it did. It got completely covered. So here's a photograph from, I think, about 2014 or 2013, when actually there was no spring flow at all at Soda Dam for a few years in the 2000s. But that log C is completely buried. If you come down and climb down around here and look up underneath here, you can see that log. There's a little window right here. You can actually see the log up underneath that window, right? So it got completely buried, and we've been able to measure how much travertine has grown over that log. So that has given us a clue of how long it takes and what the rate of growth of the travertine is on Soda Dam itself. Again, I was saying, well, where did the travertine go? That's not being formed now. Well, it's flowing along the west side of the river. Here's the road cut. Talk a little bit about the road cut. Very unfortunate that was done. I think they probably could have built the new road up and over, but they didn't. They blasted right through it. And that changed the hydraulics of Soda Dam probably forever. Maybe not. But here's an aerial view. Here's a Google map, a Google Earth version of Soda Dam. Here you can see Soda Dam here. And note a couple things. Here, the Hemis River coming down. And the Hemis River comes directly for the west end of Soda Dam. Then it makes a hard left turn and flows all the way to the east side before it goes under. So the dam itself has diverted the river over time. The dam has been a very major feature in diverting the Hemis River. And the Hemis River has probably impacted Soda Dam itself, especially during flood stages. The river, imagine what the river is doing to that end of Soda Dam. And then the road cut, this is a map from the 1950s, before they blasted the end of Soda Dam. The road used to go up and over and around. So the old road used to go up and over and pretty much through this parking lot that you have on that north side. So it's very sad that was done. The photographs, there's very few old photographs of the road itself. You can just see hints of it. And so for many years, we were looking for photographs to try to understand the road and where it went and so on. And finally, my wife and I, Suzanne, were in England, and we had heard about this collection of photographs from 1903 taken by Richard Baxter Townsend. And we went into the museum there and asked to see the photographs, and they brought out a photo book, and we opened up the cover, and the first photo we looked at was this one. We let out a hoop. Wow, there it is. There's the old road going up over Soda Dam, and you're looking at a 6-horse team pulling a freight wagon up over Soda Dam. 6 horses. Notice down here, they took the horses off of this little wagon to add them to here to get the wagon up over the top, because it was a tough pull going up over Soda Dam, and it was a rough road going up over Soda Dam. It was always kind of a bottleneck. So here's a repeat photo from the same place. I'm standing up on Soda Dam, looking down, and there's the road, old road on the left, and the new road on the right. You can actually see there's a bit of a travertine formation over here. That's the same one as that travertine formation right there. And here's a picture of the final moments as they were getting up over the top. I mean, look how rough and rocky it is. They're pulling probably mining equipment. I think maybe this is like some mining equipment they were taking up to Sulphur Springs, because they were mining sulfur up at Sulphur Springs at that time. That's a guess. I don't know what that equipment is, probably, but it was really heavy on a freight wagon, and they're trying to get it up and over the top of Soda Dam. So Soda Dam was always kind of a bottleneck on the road. I'm sure later on in decades they improved the road, and it was, not so difficult to get over the road from the teens and 20s and 30s and on up through the 50s. And for many years I've been trying to get the exact date of the construction of when they actually blasted Soda Dam, and I've asked old timers in the Hemis Valley when it happened, and most people said late 50s or early 60s, but I never could nail it down. And just this last few months, I've been able to track it down through the Department of Transportation in Santa Fe, and actually with the help of the state librarian, we found these old highway engineer reports, and I actually found the construction plans for this project that included the building of the bridge that they're tearing down right now, the same. And so the date of the actual blasting was probably late 1960 or in the spring, early summer of 1961. And it's kind of sad because, there's really no discussion about whether they should do this or not. They just did it. And also, they did this with the permission of the owners, the landowners. At the time, Soda Dam was held by a private landowner. And so they got easement right-of-way waiver from the landowner to do that. It was sometime after this construction that this property was transferred to the U.S. Forest Service. So the permissions to do this wasn't through the federal government, it was through a private landowner. There's other little interesting things that I've learned in these reports. And one of them was that there used to be a sizable hot spring pool right here in that old parking lot there that's right on that north side. There was like a 15 by 20 foot pool of hot water there. So the water used to, instead of flowing down the road on that west side, the water used to come out in some springs on this end, and it was filled a nice little hot spring there, and people used to camp on this north side, a much nicer camping with grassy and right near the river, and there was a hot spring right there on that north side that no longer exists because of the road cut. Well, what about the dam, and what are the implications of all this? Well, these are pictures on the upstream side of Soda Dam where the water goes over the waterfall there, and look at the logs. These are relatively recent logs that have come up against the backside of Soda Dam, and they're getting embedded in Soda Dam today. So this is the story and history of Soda Dam, how it has created these domes over the river. Is you get these wooden logs catching there, and they're sort of like rebar and cement. They're kind of holding it together while the travertine forms. And even in dry years, like these photographs, there's almost no spring flow over the top. There still is spring flow down lower, right at the level of the road cut. You still get spring flows, but if you go up higher, this is now up above the level of the road cut. There's only spring flows here during really wet years. So we're seeing some spring flow now for some reason. Well, we've been able to look at that log C that's buried underneath a travertine here. This is actually a photograph. It's kind of hard to make out, but there's a photograph of log C here, and that's my son Tyson there and some of my student assistants. We've been able to measure how much travertine formed over the top of log C since 1890 up to probably 1960 or so, when most of the travertine formation was interrupted over the top of log C. And so we know that's about 20 inches. So there's about 20 inches of travertine that formed over that log in that time period. And we've also been able to measure Soda Dam in quite a lot of detail. There's a lot of great new tools and data. So there's now a LiDAR coverage. This is a laser-based measurement of the ground surface. So they flew airplanes over the Hemis Mountains and shooting laser beams down to the ground. We now have a map that's probably accurate to within a foot or two of resolution of soda dam. So we've been able to measure soda dam in quite a lot of detail. And this is just an image from one of the computer models that takes the map of soda dam, the three-dimensional map of soda dam, and are able to take the map of soda dam and actually compute the volume of soda dam. So I've been able to compute the volume of the older part of soda dam. There's the break right there. That's the shear zone. So I've been able to measure that volume, and I've also been able to measure the volume of the cascade domes that are over the river. And to make a long story short, there's a lot of text here you don't really need to read, but the basic story is that the rate of growth with the 20 inches of travertine over log C, the rate of growth is something like 4 to 8 millimeters per year. So, you know, a pretty small amount, like maybe a 1/10 of an inch to 1/4 of an inch. But if you look at the whole soda dam, the whole thing, the 15,000 cubic meters of soda dam, and you say that formed over 5,000 years, I get a rate of growth of 2 to 4 millimeters. So slower, so much slower, right? So the big soda dam, probably slower. And the cascade, the domes were forming pretty fast. I mean, we can see that in the old photographs from 1890 to, it only took to probably the 19 teens or 20s to actually cover that log. So it was really, for whatever reason, there was a lot of flow. It was about twice the rate of the long-term growth rate. It's probably around 2 to 4 millimeters. And there's a little feature, if you go up to the grove, there's actually the grotto, and then right to the left of the grotto, there's like a bubble-like feature. And in that feature, you can see some really clearly there's layers, almost like the rings of a tree, so tree rings. So this naturally caught my attention. You can see these layers of growth in soda dam, and they tend to be about 1/2 a millimeter, let's see, half a centimeter to a centimeter in width. So all in all, we get a rate of growth here that's pretty rapid. And from that, I make one interesting and kind of a speculation that's not been proven yet by somebody else checking my numbers. But there's an interesting conclusion from all this measurement of the growth rate of soda dam. So what I think was that there was a major flood that broke the main soda dam, and then there was this cascade formations that developed. And if you could compute the volume of this part of soda dam and the growth rate that we have for this part of soda dam, guess what? That cascade formation might only be about 500 years old. So this whole part of soda dam may have formed only over the last 400 to 500 years. And that's quite remarkable if you think about the fact that the Hemis people have lived in this valley for more than 1,000 years, and then other people have lived in the valley much longer than that, ancestors of the Hemis people as well. So there were people living here, large numbers of Hemis people, just before Spanish contact. They're in we're talking about 1500s to late 1500s is when this part of the dam may have broken through with a major flood, and the Hemis people probably witnessed that. And they also saw the formation and may have even affected the formation of the cascade domes on that side of soda dam. So the grotto itself, this is again highly speculative, it's possible that the grotto itself is partly been influenced by the Hemis people. It might be, what I'm saying is it's possibly even partly human developed structure. There is an interesting feature on the grotto. There's a vertical pillar right here that on the back side of it, it's hollow, which suggests that at one time it was a wooden beam that rotted out. So there may have been a wooden beam that was vertical there that then became covered with travertine. The grotto itself is an amazing feature. So in summary, the flood story is that there have been lots of floods in the modern era, but maybe the big one in the past. This photograph is standing on the dome, looking at the shear zone, and here's the central fissure, and then here's the bedded travertine on the north side of soda dam that broke through maybe 500 years ago. Okay, shifting gears here a little bit to another part of the story, and this is about caves and the springs. Here's the description of soda dam from 1875. This is probably the first detailed description of soda dam by scientists. They were with the US government's Wheeler survey. that came through New Mexico in the 1870s surveying New Mexico, and they described Soda Dam in quite a lot of depth. And one of the amazing ones is what they say here about the number of springs. And also, the main thing I want to point you to is they describe at the end of this, notice what I've underlined there, on the eastern end of this mound is a cave 10 feet high, 25 feet long, and 7 feet wide, with snow white walls and 2 columns. Well, this is a little confusing because actually I think they made an error in this sentence. They meant to say the western end. And this puzzled me at first, because there's no cave that matches those dimensions. Even in the 1870s, the Grotto could not have been of that dimensions. And I'm more or less convinced of this now because there's other evidence talking about a big cave on the western side of Soda Dam. So several years ago, I found this old story that was published in the Santa Fe New Mexican about some tourists who came up into the Hemis country on horseback and camped at Soda Dam. And they described Soda Dam in quite a lot of detail. This is a really interesting, fun story to read. If you don't have a copy of it, send me an email and I'll send you a PDF of this story about the visit of the Livingston family to Soda Dam. But one of the things that caught me in their story was they described camping by this cave on the north side of Soda Dam. And here they describe the description of it. Dimensions 30 feet long, 10 feet wide, 13 feet high, with an entrance 12 feet wide and a window overlooking the cataract, overlooking the river, 3 by 4 feet. So they describe a big cave on the north side of Soda Dam. And they're not the only ones. There's other records of this cave on the north side, and it comes from the excavation of Hemis Cave. So here's Hemis Cave, which I'm sure many of you know. This is a cave just up above Soda Dam on the west side. And notice Hemis Cave is underneath the old Soda Dam. It's an overhang underneath the ancient Soda Dam that's 500,000 to 1 million years old. And this is itself a national landmark, really, because it's a really important paleo Indian site, where people had lived in this cave for at least 3,000 years. So this cave was first excavated in the 1930s. Someone found a mummified baby wrapped in feather robes inside of the cave. And then the cave was excavated by, excavated by Alexander and Paul Reeder, and they found a lot of very interesting things. Among them were dozens and dozens of sandals, worn out yucca fiber sandals, just thrown off on the corner. Like, people were using the cave maybe as a stop place to go hunting or somewhere. And when they were done, the tradition was to throw your sandals in the corner, because there were just a few sandals. There were dozens of sandals back in the corners of these caves. And also they found more than 1,000 corn cobs. I mean, not just a few corn cobs, but more than 1,000. And some of those corn cobs date back 3,000 years before the present. And this is extraordinary. So this is the oldest agricultural corn that's known north of Interstate 40 in the Southwest. So this is a really old agricultural site. They were probably farming in along the banks of the lake or the river above Soda Dam, is my guess. And it was actually a very fertile farming area. One more little story about this, the excavation. There was some re-excavation in the 1970s, and there's a nice inventory of all the materials found. And one of the more curious ones was they found some bones of a merganser bird in Hemis Cave. If you know mergansers, they're a water bird, and they actually require a long distance of flat open water to land on. So maybe the merganser bird bone was brought in from somewhere else, but it's also possible that there was a standing lake at some time in the past above Soda Dam that harbored mergansers. Amazing thing. So back to the story of the big caves underneath Soda Dam. You don't need to read all the text here. I'll tell you, what it says. This is in that article, that Palacio article about the excavation of Hemis Cave. And in there, they talk about the fact they have workers, they have hired folks helping them excavate Hemis Cave, and it's in the wintertime, and the workers were living and staying in the cave underneath Soda Dam, because it was a great shelter. It was nice and warm down there. It was near the river. It was actually a place they could camp in while they're working for months and months excavating in Hemis Cave. Now, you know as well as I that there's no way you could do that in the grotto. They were camping in the big cave, and it was on the north side of Soda Dam. Well, there's other stories about caves. You may have seen this one. This is Roland Pellet talks about the story of the Boozleman, Moses of Boozleman, actually finding a drive cave somewhere underneath where there's an underwater passage. This is kind of an amazing apocryphal story, I think. But there is evidence that they did find something, because I came across a record of a contribution of some materials, I believe, in the Smithsonian. So I'd like to learn more about this. And I'd like to learn more, of course, about the cave that was on the north side. To this date, I have no photographs of that cave. There are very, very few photographs taken from the north side of Soda Dam. But what happened was, I think at one time in the past, the river undermined Soda Dam and probably created that big cave. And then they blasted the road through Soda Dam, and a lot of the debris from the blasting of the road is probably right in front of where that big cave used to be on the north side of Soda Dam. So here's the picture from the upstream side of Soda Dam. There's Hemis Cave, there's the road cut, and then here's all this debris that is from the road cut where they blasted through Soda Dam. What a shame that that was done. And too bad we don't have another cave in Soda Dam to look at. Well, last couple comments about Soda Dam is that, yeah, it is a roadside attraction, and it's a lot more than that. People love Soda Dam, but it has a great deal of history, and I've just barely probably scratched the surface. And don't you think it'd be great if we could share a lot of this information? Wouldn't it be useful if people could learn this information on site about Soda Dam, and so they could appreciate it more, and also so that we could protect it. It's the grotto. Here's some photographs of the grotto. You might know that if you ever climb up in there, there's a little pool of water, and actually a little, I mean, it looks like this, you know, one to speculate that maybe this is human made. There's actually a pool there that's been built up, and it's a beautiful little enclosure inside the grotto. The Hemis, the Soda Dam has meant a lot to Hemis people, and it's meant a lot to people of this valley for a very long, long time. Here's just one image I found from photograph records from my family. These are figurines created by Al and Nat Momaday. Back in the 60s, the Hemis Springs Village put on lots of Christmas displays, and they had wonderful nativity scenes and whatnot. And Al and Nat Momaday created these three wise men figures painted on wooden boards, and I'll see the little sheep up there as well. So they're painted as Navajo and Hemis tribal Pueblo and tribal folks. And by the way, this is from a photograph. There's actually a little star right there in the photograph. I didn't add that with Photoshop. It's actually a little white spot on the photograph. I don't know if it's the moon or what, but that's a picture of. And I just show this just to extend that the cultural interest in Soda Dam and attachment to Soda Dam goes very deep, way back in time, thousands of years into the present and our modern day. And it brings up these really deep questions I think that we all should be asking, residents and all those of the rest of us that love Soda Dam, and even visitors from afar, just to visit it occasionally, is how can we manage and conserve this resource, and how can we learn and educate and share that knowledge about Soda Dam, and what can we do? What should we do? Is there any possibility of restoring the spring waters to Soda Dam from the west side of the road back into the main central fissure? I don't know if that's practical or not, but maybe it's something that I really think it should be explored. The questions should be asked, and I think there's some longer term questions about the management of Soda Dam. My own view, my own perspective is that Soda Dam is worthy of national park or national monument status. I think the Forest Service has done what they can to protect it, but they may not have the resources or the time or the focus to interpret it and manage it the way it should. I would actually advocate moving it to the National Park Service and would suggest it become part of the Valles Caldera National Preserve. But that's just one idea. Maybe another formulation would be more appropriate. In any case, I think Soda Dam needs protection. It needs attention. The last little thing, I'm probably running over time, but I wanted to show you one little quick video. This is a drone flight up and over the old, so this is one of the old soda dams right there. And so I wanted to see what it looked like on the back side. So I flew up and over and I turned around the drone, if I get it to keep going here. And it's not cooperating. Well, I probably have gone overtime on this. So anyway, so what this shows, which I'm not going to be able to show you apparently, is that, are we still on? You guys still hear me okay? Okay. Is that on the back side of that old soda dam is a very deep central fissure. It shows up on the backside of that old soda dam. And someday I hope people will go through that and see what's inside that fissure on the backside of the old soda dam. So, okay, that's the end of my presentation. And I have a couple of questions here. And one of them is from Mark and Dee Dee Feldman. How do you speculate the Hemis formed the more recent part of Soda Dam? So that's what I was talking about with the cascade part of Soda Dam here. Was what I'm saying is that a big flood probably broke this part off, and then over the last 400 to 500 years, the water is coming out of that central fissure, and it has formed the cascades over the river. And it's been this process where the travertine is forming like these cascade dome-like shapes, and then logs are coming down in floods and getting sort of cemented in, and that helps bridge the travertine over the river. So the flooding and the logs getting embedded in the cascade part of Soda Dam, I think, is really critical in the formation of Soda Dam over the river.
I think part of that was about how did the Hemis people maybe have an effect.
So the question maybe was also how the Hemis people may have had an effect. Yeah, how did the Hemis form? So this is, again, highly speculative on my part. And I also should say that I build this talk as a cultural history, and it's a very narrow cultural history. It's from mostly, Euro-American period from the 1890s forward, and I can't speak for the Hemis people. I think they have a much deeper knowledge about Soda Dam than I'll ever know, and I really respect and admire their relationships to various places in the valley here. And I do know that the Soda Dam is a sacred place for the Hemis, and the grotto itself is a sacred place for the Hemis people. And I don't know how they might have affected it, other than that it is an important place now, and there is a grotto there, and there's a very interesting structures to the grotto, with including the little water catchment that's in there. And over time, there have been logs in there trying to keep people out of it. I don't know. One thing more I would say about the Hemis people is if there is some change in the management of Hemis and the supervision of the Hemis and the preservation of the Hemis of the Soda Dam, is that the Hemis people, Hemis Pueblo people, should be really directly and centrally involved in that.
Here's another question.
Other question?
Yeah. Okay.
I'm waiting on a question. Okay. Someone's typing. Is it in chat?
Yeah, it's in chat.
Oh, I can read it.
It's from Townsend.
Yeah. And the question is? Okay.
Why did it fill in? It used to be
So,
a great swim hole.
Question is, Soda Dam used to be a great swimming hole at some point in the 90s. It was filled in. Rivers Village did this, or it was spring runoff. Spring runoff. Yeah. So the swimming hole definitely changes its character from year to year. When we were kids, at some years, it would be really, really deep. I mean, we had kids that used to get this. We had kids that would dive or jump off of the dome down into the pool. And they might hit bottom, but it was probably 10 or 12 feet deep or more when it was all scooped out. And then after some big floods and some erosion in the uplands, you would get a lot of debris would come in. So there were some years when you could walk to the waterfall. You could walk across the pool of the waterfall because it's filled in with sand. And then later on, another flood would come without so much sediment and wash it all out again. So that, I think it's just a very dynamic. Whether or not the pool is deep or shallow depends quite a lot on how much sediment comes down in the water in any given year. Okay. Any more questions? Ask Tom what the construction is north of the dam. Oh, well, I don't really know. I think there's some private properties that has recently been acquired just to the north of Soda Dam, and it may be that someone is getting ready to build there. They might want to be aware of flooding. I will say that. Just north of the dam, in the future, there may be, ask yourself what would happen if the east end gets plugged up, if the waterfall there gets a bunch of logs and debris in it and gets plugged up. Then you're going to get water backing up the valley some distance and covering some area. So it's essentially a floodplain north of Soda Dam for some distance. Okay, anything else? All right, thank you everybody for attending and listening. I really appreciate it. One more.
Two more questions. Chef has sent one. Look at your chat.
Okay. Do I know about the ceremonial uses of the Hemis people? I don't know any details really about the ceremonial uses. I do know that I read from their archaeological accounts, and I've actually, some Hemis friends have told me that the cave, Hemis Cave above Soda Dam was of some ceremonial use, and that the archaeologists speculate that it was only used up to a certain point in time. And after that, they were probably using the caves inside or underneath Soda Dam much more than they were using Hemis Cave itself. Then Dee Dee question, and says, while in the legislature, I met a Hemis young man, a paraplegic who was so injured when he jumped off the dam into that swimming pool. He's become a champion for people with disabilities. Yeah, boy, I count myself lucky that I'm not, I didn't hurt myself, because I used to jump off of the cliffs above Soda Dam myself. And I used to see some of the crazier boys in the valley would jump off the dome. I never did that. Sorry to hear that somebody was hurt. Okay, any more? Thank you, everybody. Okay, I'm going to end.